Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Critique of the Week for Friday, November 19th. Facebook's having some problems. I think I got it to go live, though. But they were having some technical issues. Error messages kept popping up. Kept having to refresh the page. I think it's working, though. We only got 2 viewers over there, but there's Paul Corbeil. So it's starting to work. So some glitchy things going on. They just introduced a new... what we call a live Facebook Live dashboard, and they're clearly having some issues. They kept having a search query not found or something when I tried to add the title, and then you can't post a stream without a title, and so we're kind of stuck in a loop. But I've refreshed like 7 times, and then finally that error stopped coming up. Okay, so we are there, and we are over on YouTube. Hello to everybody over there. Terry R. Clayton Clark, Jill Eagland, D. Coleman, Spartacus is here, James Langford, good to see y'all. Now, as always, the Critique of the Week is a chance to give that workshop experience to people who might not have it. It's such a valuable thing to be able to have feedback from strangers about what's working and what's not. It's also a chance to sort of give the author or everybody else the experience of seeing a poem through an editor's eye as if it were a submission. And that's going to be even more the case today, because this is one of those weeks where I haven't even looked at these poems. I haven't even glanced ahead, so I have no idea what's coming up. In the same way that we would with a submission, I just have no idea what these poems are going to be. But we have 2 great poets here, Cindy Botha and who's the other poet? And Maggie Rothberg. And so these look like good poems just from a distance. My friend Eric Campbell, we were on a podcast last night, and he always talks about how you could judge a student's paper from across the room just by the look of the paragraphs. And doing that with these poems, it looks like they're good poems. So let's see what they are. Let's dive right in. And as always, do leave your comments, I meant to say. It's really helpful for the poets to hear what people say about them, and I'll try to pass along as many as I can. But they can read the comments later, too, so leave your comments. That's the whole deal here. Okay, so I came a little late. Is this... I might have to adjust the lighting on the document camera, too. I'm usually I'm fixing the lighting. This time I was trying to fix Facebook. Maybe a little brighter. Maybe a little. Let's see. We want a little bit of. Let's see. Trying to get it good. Yeah, that's probably good. Now it's a little too. Hang on. Just bear with me, everybody. Bear with me. I try to get it so it's the best visual experience possible, and it's tough to get the lighting both. Do we want to lower? Maybe less contrast and more brightness. That's probably better. Okay, I think that's clear. That's about as good as it gets. Okay. Oh, maybe I should. There we go. That's something I usually do as the stream is getting set up. Okay, so this first poem, this is Cindy Botha. And now it's a little too bright. The problem is this office is full of windows. And depending on how bright the day is, the lighting conditions change. I should get some kind of studio where I don't have windows. Or I should just black them out or something. But I like having windows. So anyway, Bird Strike. The sound is of a soft, spurred thing smashing into glass that doesn't yield, that flings back what it doesn't need, a bird vaulting from the lilac to smack the pebble of its skull into sky that isn't sky at all. For a heartbeat, our eyes lock, then flick away. We meant to hang sun catchers at the windows. We're both remembering the double thud, a bare second between 2 pairs of blurring wings. Better it was both, you said then. Blackbirds mate for life. We Googled wind chimes, mobiles to hang in the windows, collision stickers. Zen string shades, then forgot. Now our ears funnel to hope of flutter, nothing. The cat resumes his licking, and the house fills with an afternoon silence. Clock ticking from another room. No returning to before one buff breast feather adhered to the glass, a smudge of something barely there. I imagine deflectors twirling on the window, refracting warning prisms. I have to look. A male song thrush. He releases warmth into my hands, though. Of course, his head flops irrefutably. I fold drab wings, lay the body where his mate can come and grieve, as I've heard they will. To the silent bird watching from the cherry tree, I want to say we meant to hang. Did I print it? Well, let's see. Is there supposed to be more poem? Oh man, this stream is really not going well, is it? Let me see. So Cindy sent. Did I not print out the whole poem? Cindy Botha. Hang on. Okay. This is Bird Strike. I thought I printed the whole thing. I guess it just ends there. It's a very sudden ending. It felt like there should be a second page. Interesting. So, I guess that's intentional. Let me read the ending again, just because I was expecting it to go on, so I have to like rehash. Let's read the last two stanzas, kind of. I have to look. A male song thrush. He releases warmth into my hands, though, of course, his head flops irrefutably. I fold drab wings, lay the body where his mate can come and grieve, as I've heard they will. To the silent bird watching from the cherry tree, I want to say we meant to hang. Yeah, I guess it does cut off there. Interesting. It's weird that, when it's, and that's why we do it. If you look at Rattle's issues, we have I put this little symbol here, like that, at the end of the issue, if the poem continues. Because there's a weird way that if you're at the bottom of the page, you sort of think the poem might or might not continue. And in that case, you sort of read it confusingly, and it sort of throws you out of the poem, which is what happened here. So that's why we have that. If you ever wonder, there's a light gray ... when the poem continues, just so that you know. It's interesting. So I understand why the ending is doing that. It seems it's because there's the sudden thud of the bird, like you think you're going on. There's a poem that we published. Let me show you this poem. It's Jane Hirschfield's "Those Who Cannot Act." It's much shorter, and it's the same kind of thing that happens here. So let me go to the screen view. Screen view. So this is Jane Hirschfield's poem, "Those Who Cannot Act." I'll just read this one. It's short, which makes it, I think, work a little better, the cutoff. But some people still thought the poem continued and were confused by it. So I got some messages on this that said the poem, what happened to the rest of the poem. Jane Hirschfield, "Those who cannot act. Those who act will suffer into truth. What, I don't know how to say it, Aeschylus omitted. Those who cannot act will suffer too. The sister banished into exile, the unnamed dog soon killed. Even the bystanders vanish, one by one, peripheral, in pain, unnoticed, well." And then it cuts off because it makes you a person who cannot act. You're sort of trapped here, not being finished, like the people who, like the unnamed dog. That becomes you, the reader, who can't act either to finish the poem. So that's a very short Jane Hirschfield poem, which works, I think, because it's so short. And so the issue to me with doing an ending like this, which cuts it off, after a long poem, I feel like I'm expecting more. I wonder what people are saying about this ending. I'm kind of fascinated by it. So Terry R says we're left hanging. It's a surprise ending. Tam Barla said the M dash implies more. 3 dots would be better, perhaps. Liska says, I agree, 3 dots would feel like the speaker's trailing off instead of being cut off. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do. I think that if the poem were shorter, and interestingly, too, as I was going through the poem, I felt like the poem was too long. That was going to be my main comment anyway until we got to this ending. So I think maybe this would work, because the thing is, everyone's mentioning an ellipsis, like a ... like trailing off. But what you want to do is sudden, because the bird thinks that the window is just sky, and all of a sudden it's dead. And so I think Cindy's trying to recreate that in this poem. And I think the problem is it's not balanced right. There's too much leading in. But I also thought, as we go through the poem line by line, that there's probably just too much description. Like I thought my overall impression of the poem until we got to this ending was that the descriptions are great and there's a great music to it. It worked really well, but it felt like it went on too long. Like we sort of like get the picture and then the picture kept coming. So I think maybe if the poem were half the size and we ended sudden like that, it would solve all the problems. Because the reason why it was hard to figure out that was the real ending is because it goes down to the bottom of the page. And so that if it was half the size, you would know that was intentional. Like the Hirschfield poem, which is very short, but also it would just make it feel much more sudden, which I think is what we want to do. So and so Clayton Clark is saying, I also felt like the poem was too long. It's got so much good stuff in it, but too much. Yeah, exactly. Terry R. says, we know the rest of what would be said to the bird in the tree, so why say it? The guilt hits harder this way. I think, yeah, I agree. I like this premise. It's just, I think it's too long. It needs to be a more sudden poem, a quicker poem. Let's see. Sharon Friday says no punctuation at all in the end. And that's what the Jane Hirschfield poem does. If you look back at Those Who Cannot Act, she doesn't have a dash or ellipses or anything. She just ends it right there with that line as if the poem continues, but then it doesn't. And so that's what, I'm not sure. I wonder, that's what someone suggested. Who was that suggested that? That was Sharon Ferrante suggested that. Yeah, I think maybe. So let's go look at this line by line. This is an interesting poem for sure. What I really want to do is think about what we can cut, because I really feel like it should be about half the length, and then I think the ending would work if it was half the length. So let's see where we can go with this. Okay, so it's bird strike. The sound is a soft spurred thing smashing to glass that doesn't yield, that flings back what it doesn't need. A bird vaulting from the lilac dusk to smack the pebble of its skull into sky that isn't sky at all. That's a great beginning. I really love the whole thing pretty much. And the document cam is too bright. Yeah, turn this down for you a little bit. Maybe. Man, there's just so much light coming out of that side. If I go like this. That'll be a little better. Okay. So, what's better? The sound, so I like this whole opening. The sound of a soft spurred thing. Like, what a great description that is. A soft spurred thing. It's really good. Into the glass that doesn't yield, that flings back what it doesn't need. A bird vaulting from lilac to dusk to smack. I think vaulting from lilac to dusk might be something. I might cut that part. I mean, it may make this like smacking, so you could continue smacking the pebble of its skull. Well, I'm just trying to look at things to cut, and I think that's something that could be that fling. What if it was this that flings back what it doesn't need, smacking the pebble of its skull into sky that isn't sky after all. I think that would be better, just getting that quicker. And I think that's what we want to do throughout the poem, is find ways to get to the best images more quickly. For a heartbeat, where was I? Our eyes lock, then flick away. We meant to hang sun catchers at the windows. So for a heartbeat, our eyes lock, then flick away. I wonder if... I think I'd keep that. We meant to hang sun catchers at the windows. We were both remembering the double thud, a bare part second, and 2 pairs of blurring wings. Better it was both, you said. Blackbirds, mate for life. Let's see. We both remember the double thud, a bare part second between 2 pairs of blurring wings. Interesting. So talking about these windows, I have the same issue with the windows, and I've put things in the reflectors in the trees to make them kind of keep the birds away, and nothing seems to work in the same way. So every once in a while we'll get these birds, but I've never seen 2. That'd be very memorable, and maybe this could be explained a little more. So the first bird is different than the blackbirds too. Bare second between. I don't know. I think this works too. We Googled wind chimes, and maybe the Googled can be cut, and we can just like list the things that we've tried: wind chimes, mobiles to hang in the windows. Probably not in the windows. Collision stickers. It's just like a list better here to keep it shorter. Collision stickers, Zen string shades. I then forgot. So I'm just trying to cut it as much as it's not necessary to shorten up the poem. Now our ears funnel to a hope of flutter. Funnel to a hope of flutter. Nothing. The cat resumes his licking, and the house fills with with an afternoon silence. Clock ticking from another room. No returning to before one buff breast feather adhered to the glass, a smudge of something barely there. So is that so here? Now our ears funnel to a hope of flutter. So we're hoping that we'll hear the bird fly away, but we don't want to watch because we know he's probably dead. Is that what's going on here? Let's see. Let's look at the comments too. Let's see. So Sharon Friday says, I take it that we're both remembering the double thud. Yeah, that's a good one to cut out too. We're both remembering. We don't need that. Once, I don't know, you just go back to that without saying we're both remembering. I think that would just tighten it up a little bit. The cat resumes his licking, the house filled with an afternoon silence, clock ticking from another room. No returning to before one buff breast feather adhered to the glass, a smudge of something barely there. I think this part, there's not really enough drama in this part to sort of justify it. Like, if we really were like waiting and hoping that this bird comes back to life, if that's what's going on here, and I think that's what I'm reading, then there is a sort of sense of a drama of waiting, but the way that we're sort of not paying attention to it, and the clock is just ticking, it's not as compelling as the rest. So I would either find a way to do this differently, or maybe this is a section to cut and just jump forward to the stuff that works later down here, because I think no return to before one buff breast feather adhered to the glass. I mean, we could jump right from up here where the bird hits to this part where there's no returning to before one buff breast feather adhered to the glass. I think that's what I would do and cut this stanza here. I imagine deflectors twirling in the window, refracting warning prisms. And again, this is sort of repeating this list that we already had with the collision stickers and things, the mobiles and wind chimes. So I would probably, not imagine the reflectors twirling in the window, refracting warning prisms. Like, we've been there already, so that's another thing you can cut. I have to look. And I don't know about I have to look. I mean, I think it just feels to me, going back to this drama, that there's sort of, it's setting up as if there's this dramatic scene playing out where we're waiting to see if the bird lives or dies, but I'm not feeling the drama of that. I'm not feeling the worry. Sharon Friend says maybe take out the cat too. And yeah, maybe take out the cat too. I think this whole thing we could just cut, So I think I want to the sound, just focus on the sound. And then maybe go back to the both. I don't know. What do we get out by the both? The two blackbirds mating for life. Like, could we just go with the descriptions? The sound. We hear the sound. We think we list the things we tried to prevent this from happening because it happens so much, obviously. And then we go right to the description. And then the I have to look would sort of be jumping into it. I have to look, a male song thrush. He releases warmth into my hands, though. Of course, his head flops irrefutably. I think maybe of course, doesn't need to be there. I fold drab wings, lay the body where his mate can come and grieve, as I've heard they will, to the silent bird watching from the cherry tree. I want to say we meant to hang. Yeah, I don't know. I think that ending would work. So if we just move more quickly through this, I think that would work. So Nate Jacobs says that maybe the lack of resolution is intended. I want some resolution, though, or an elevation of the drama from the mention of a cat. For the mention of the cat on. The idea of a cat should introduce some tension in the story about a bird. Paul Corbeil says the word irrefutably jars the line. It disrupts the sonic rhythm. Which was, where was the irrefutably? Right here. His head flops irrefutably. There's warmth in my hands, though. His head flops irrefutably. I fold drab wings, lay the body where his mate can come and grieve, as I've heard they will. The other thing that confused me a little bit, too, so it's a male song thrush. And here it's the blackbirds that mate for life. So I wonder if there's something being set up there. It sort of seems to imply that the difference in species matters in a way. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm just trying to think of ways to condense it down, because I think we just want to get this half the size and just, move through much more quickly. So let's see. Mark Vinier says, I imagine deflectors as if something is distracting their attention on the relationship. That's what I'm trying to get at, too, is that there feels like there's something to go. We talk a little bit about we're both remembering, which we cut just because it seems superfluous. But this thing about the blackbirds mating for life, and then the other bird is like waiting, looking at his dead mate or partner or whatever. The female is up in the tree. And so that seems to sort of be setting up something about the relationship of the people that are doing it here, but that doesn't really pay off. So maybe there's more to it than that, and maybe there's some kind of metaphor for the human relationship that's going on at this house for the different birds, but that doesn't really come out, I don't think. So if that's something to maybe explore, but it feels sort of like the Chekhov's gun that never goes off or something. There's not really a payoff to that, it feels like. So to me, I read that as just a distraction. And I kind of want to go more quickly to the to this ending, which is interesting. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess we Googled. Maybe that's why the Google is important. Because they looked it up and thought about this stuff, but didn't actually do it. Yeah. So is that saying something about the relationship? I don't know. This is one of those interesting poems. Like it could go in two different directions, I think. It could get more into that relationship aspect, or it could just focus on the fact that we didn't hang the things. Let's see. So yeah, Jenny Middleton said the message about not fixing problems in a relationship, ignoring problems until it's too late. Yeah, I mean, like that feels like it's there. It doesn't feel like it's there emotionally though. So I mean, maybe what's missing, if you want to take that turn and make it more of a metaphor for the relationship, is give some hint that there's a problem with the relationship. If that's the case, it's just hard. I can't even tell. It's very ambiguous whether or not that's a real reading of the relationship. We're both remembering the double thud. So we're both there remembering. We both Googled. Both didn't do it. But there's no hint that there's something like, needs to be done with the relationship that this is sort of filling in for. So if there could be some hint, if you want to go in that direction, then there could be some hint that that's the case. Then maybe that's something to do. That's over on YouTube. So Terry R says, let's see. So Open Dance Ensemble and Terry R are having a sort of conversation here about what's physically happening. So yeah, so my reading is that in the past, the two blackbirds crashed into the window. And then we thought about Googling, and we Googled and thought about putting stuff up and all the different options. We never did anything. And then this time one bird crashed and the other bird's waiting. And so it's like an apology to the bird that's still alive for not following through on what happened. So that's my reading of it. And it's the question is, do we read more into it than that? Or do we just focus on, I could have done more? Which way is the poem going? And I mean, if we do want to focus and tighten it up, because I don't know, it's tough because the ending, I think it needs to be tight and short for this ending to work if we want to do it that way. But there's an interesting layer with a relationship that's going on too. And so that requires maybe the same length, but then you have the ending that doesn't work. So we're sort of we have to make a decision here for how the poem is going to go. Let's see. So James Langford says, sorry, Tim, but the cat and the clock contrast with the severity of the event. Time ticks on, and even the cat takes no notice of a small life. The contrast is striking. I agree, shorter, but don't cut that. Yeah, maybe. I do like that. That's what I was saying. The I don't like the situation is set up for drama, but I'm not feeling the drama in this section. The cat resumes his licking. It might be because a clock ticking is kind of a cliche a little bit. And maybe there's no sense of the we there either, or the speaker. Now our ears funnel to a hope of flutter. Nothing. The cat resumes his licking, and the house fills with an afternoon of silence. The clock ticking from another room is just such a sort of cliche type thing. I don't know. For some reason, maybe other people are feeling the drama. I'm not feeling like the drama of that scene is as much as it could be. Maybe it's because it's not drawn out. I'm not sure. I'm sure why. So Terry R. says, I think there's a misunderstanding about how this poem works, so I don't know why. I don't think Cindy should necessarily make these changes, but might make it easier to pick up on past and present. So Liska says, only one bird dying feels more tragic to them because there's a grieving bird left, like they would grieve for each other. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough poem because there's a lot of really interesting content and things to pick apart and think about. And there's a hidden, I think Mark Grenier said that there's a hidden depth in this poem. And I agree with that. I feel like it could come out more. And the question is, how do we bring it out more? And how to make the ending work? And maybe the answer is to just change the ending. Find a new ending that doesn't end on the sudden jarring thing. I don't know. This is an interesting poem to critique. Nate Jacobs says, I need more clarity in moving between the multiple scenes and times. I like them all, but I want delineation between them. Doing so heightens the tension between the scenes. I'm Dana Broadhead. I think it is about how death takes us by surprise. That's why I like the ending, yeah. Anyway, and the way we respond after we find out about death. Time stands still for a moment. We are left wondering if there's anything more we could have said or done. Yeah, there's just a lot of things going on in this poem. A lot of let's see. So, I don't know. I can't decide which way I think the poem would work better. It's tough. Because I do like, more of a point toward the couple would sort of expand it. I think I maybe, at this point, maybe leaning toward that. So I think maybe I lean toward making the ending work a little better. I've heard. So Sharon Ferrante says, plenty here to make that ending better. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's more about what it is. I don't know. This is an interesting poem. But I think we've exhausted our comment about it. Let's see. Open Dance Ensemble here says Bird Strike. Says if it happened twice, title should be plural. Um, yeah, so people are suggesting bird strikes, which maybe, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those poems where I feel like it's really good and could be better, though. And how to make it better is tricky. I just can't decide if I want to lean toward condensing or expanding into the relationship so it means more that way. The layers, I mean, one of the things that's interesting, I was talking to a slam poet. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how it's really about like condensing, like performing in a slam and successfully for the audience is about condensing as many like hits in as quickly as possible, like having a lot of different metaphors or a lot of different turns and twists and things as tightly packed as possible, and how that brings up emotion. And maybe there's a way to funnel that down and keep everything, but still make it tighter. If you move through these things more quickly. I don't know. Anyway, we gotta have to move on because we're with a slow start though. We'll just go after the full hour. But let's look at the second poem from Cindy. This is My Father's Writing Desk. And here we go. My father's writing desk doesn't protest. It simply offers up the contents of its modest drawer to scrutiny. Still I delay. From outside, the blackbirds in curious ruckus glances off this room. I thumb a silver lighter. The flint still sparks with nothing to ignite. 2 fountain pens choked on dried-up ink, golf tees, a heavy watch, dusty mistletoe from some Christmas, wax twine, a penknife, 1 cuffling shaped like a thistle. Scabby rust seals the tobacco tin. It rattles with keys, perhaps, foreign coins, meek metal things, or war medals pinned to faded ribbon. I've resisted rousing these mild oddments from their hibernation. Now it's done. In the silk tree, blackbirds still ricochet, the strange syntax of their chatter a lasting backdrop to this small conclusion. This is interesting too. My father's writing desk. And again, my initial sense is kind of similar to the other poem, where I feel like I love the content, but it doesn't need to be quite as long. So again, I'm thinking just initially of how can we make this, instead of 3 stanzas, 2. My father's writing desk doesn't protest. It simply offers up the contents of its modest drawer to scrutiny. Still I delay. From outside, the blackbirds in curious ruckus glances off this room. I thumb a silver lighter. The flint still sparks with nothing to ignite. 2 fountain pens choked on dried-up ink, golf tees, a heavy watch, dusty mistletoe from some Christmas, wax twine, a penknife, 1 cuffling shaped like a thistle. Scabby rust seals the tobacco tin. It rattles with keys, perhaps, foreign coins. Again, perhaps always throws you out of a poem. Foreign coins, meek metal things of war, or war medals pinned to faded ribbon. I've rested rousing these mild oddments from their hibernation. Now it's done. So I think there's 2 things maybe what I would do with this poem. I've rested these rousing these mild oddments from their hibernation. Now it's done. This line sort of tells what's going on in the poem in a way that's unnecessary, I think. So I would probably cut this. My father's writing desk doesn't protest. Like we can get through. Like we can imply, sort of just by saying my father's writing desk doesn't protest, and then we listing the things that's going on. We kind of know that I'm looking through these mild oddments in their hibernation, and what the meaning of it sort of is there beneath the surface in a way that we don't need to be told. And I also think that the blackbirds don't need to be introduced. So what I would probably cut this part, and I would probably cut the beginning too. So my father's writing desk doesn't protest. And I don't know if we jump right into just the contents of the writing desk and let the reader sort of make that connection, because it's pretty obvious what we're doing, going through someone's old things after they've passed away. And I don't think we need to be told that and have so much of like an author presence. I think it's more powerful if we just see the objects and then see the birds at the end. So what if it was just my father's writing desk doesn't protest? It simply offers up the contents of its modest drawer, and then get rid of the scrutiny. The scrutiny is kind of the thing. Like, we know we're scrutinizing. We don't need to be told that. So what if it was just that? My father's writing desk doesn't protest. It simply offers up the contents of its modest drawer, 2 fountain pens choked on dried up ink. Or maybe we could do I don't know. I don't even know if you need the lighter. Or maybe going from here, a modest drawer, a silver lighter. Get rid of the eye and just let the list sort of speak for itself. A silver lighter, the flint still sparks with nothing to ignite. 2 fountain pens choked on dried up ink, golf tees, a heavy watch, dusty mistletoe. And you don't need this from some Christmas, because we know it's from some Christmas. Wax twine, a penknife, 1 cuffling shaped like a thistle. And I think maybe we could end there-ish. Maybe just there. Maybe we need the war medals. So maybe like a thistle, war medals pinned to fading ribbon. In the silk tree, blackbirds still ricochet. Or maybe we could pull up a little bit I like the incurious. So what if we just pull the incurious down here? In the silk tree, incurious blackbirds sounds or something. I think it needs a little bit more. Still ricochet. The strange syntax of the chatter, a lasting drop to the small conclusion. I think that would work. We could condense it down like that, and then it ends up being this more almost like a stretched out haiku, where we have this contrast between the blackbirds here, which is like its own world, and then the world of the drawer, which is also its own world. And the fact that these two are 2 worlds in juxtaposition that don't even know each other but still relate to each other is a really interesting thing, and I think that's the most interesting thing in this poem, in addition to the really good descriptions of the details. So that's what I would do with this poem. I think this one is a lot clearer. That I think that's what I would do. I think it would work better that way. So just sort of strip out the I and move through the details, because the details. Liska says both of Cindy's poems are really captivating, and I agree. It's because she's great with these details and drawing out a scene like in really tangible, like concrete detail. I think these work really great in that way. So just cutting out that and letting these 2 things stand next to each other in juxtaposition where we can draw the conclusion. There's always this talk about how much ambiguity to have in a poem, and the ambiguity about what's going on. It rarely works if you don't know what's actually going on. So like the physical, what's really there, ambiguity doesn't really work. But the ambiguity about what it means is like what we love. With the other poem too, if we set it up more, if we left it more sparse and let us lay it out before us, and then you make up the decision for what it means, that would even work better too than trying to tell us what it means. I mean, it goes back to that show don't tell thing, which is a really expansive concept. So I think this poem is tougher to know what to say about. I think this poem works a little better. I haven't even looked at anybody's comments yet, so let me look at people's comments though. Over on Facebook, let's see. So Sharon Fuentes says, yes, condense. Jamie O'Halloran Whitmarsh, the contents reveal the father's life, the delay in going through the list, the speaker's grief. Yeah, exactly. And that delay, could we get in the title? We do the delay there. What I don't like is the I, because I think that slows down the poem in an unnecessary way. But we could just reword the title a little bit to get that sense of delay in there, and then we wouldn't need all the other stuff, kind of. But that is where the drama is like the why have I waited to go through these things, and how meaningful it is to me. And yet it's not to these incurious blackbirds that are just making a ruckus outside, or is it? And that's like the interesting thing that does speak to grief. Yeah. And then Nate Jacob says, and why have you resisted going through the drawers? And then Mark Grenier says, to not have to deal with his absence, perhaps. And then Nate Jacob says, that's a good reading of it, no doubt. And I think that is a good, that sort of dialogue there between Nate and Mark is a great example of like what you want the reader to be doing in their own head. Because you want the reader to be a part of the poem. Because we're becoming the speaker as we read a poem, and you want to have the reader participate, but without being like lost. And that it works perfectly when it goes like that conversation, where there's this delay. I haven't looked at this desk yet. However, you want to put that in the first line or title, but then you think as a reader is after reading it, like, why did they delay? And then, oh yeah, that's why. And then the poem starts to click together and make that meaning emerges out of that question. And so I think that works really well. And yeah. Okay. So I think this my father's writing this is really close. I would just pull up the speaker and get a little quicker through it. And the other thing, the other poem feels kind of similar too. Like move quicker through it and condense a little bit. It's sort of the general suggestions for Cindy. But this one's close. This one's really good. And the other one has so much potential. I'm curious to see which direction it takes, whether that's condensed or the relationship is brought out more. But anyway, let's move on to the second poem. And these poems are just judging by how much paper the printer spit out. These are a little longer. And these poems are Maggie Rothberg, Oat Latte. And one more thing, a good comment here. Mark Grenier says the blackbirds here are a kind of Greek chorus, commenting on the action in the poem. And Dana Broadhead, excellent descriptive writing in both. I'm actually seeing the items in my mind. I'd exclude the blackbirds in the beginning and replace it with a center aroma. That's a good suggestion. Thumbing the lighter is touch. Maybe say the cold tobacco tin. It rattles as sound. I think it is working through the senses. Good poem. Yeah, I agree. I think just pulling up the speaker and giving us a little bit more room to interpret, I think is what I would do with that poem. Okay, let's get in this one then. This is Maggie Rothberg, Oat Latte. But it was electric. There was a hot mischief about the way she said, I like your hair. Plus in Dallas, that was always code for I'm gay too. Her gaze and my gaze snap together like Legos. I like your overalls, I say, and forget her order. Did you say an almond milk latte? Yes. Can't see her mouth under her mask, but I think she smiles. Actually, oat. Okay, you got it. That'll be right out. On her cup with Sharpie, I write almond latte. Fuck. I cross out almond. Now it looks messy. Should I write a new cup? That's a waste of a cup. Another customer enters. Grinder stops roaring. I pour espresso into the portafilter. Move to make a nice professional tamp, but the portafilter slips off tray, hitting granite, yelling knock. Little brown granules spatter across the counter. Floor and my pants. A few customers wait in line now. Pull another shot, measure out 12 ounces oat milk, crank the steam wad and quickly see that I aerated way too much. Tip pitcher this way and that to get the vortex. Can't. Sandy white liquid. Sandy white liquid just bubbles up in chaos. Shut off steam, bang the pitcher on the counter to incorporate the air. It gets a little better. So many people now. What is taking my coworker so long with the panini? Pour the milk, lid the cup. I've got an oat milk latte, I declare, setting sail across the bar, brandishing my first gift of this new courtship. I find the key to being a mediocre barista is to announce the finished drinks in a grand tone. If you do, the customers usually don't question you. I've got a quad shot Americano with steam half and half at the bar. Like a ringmaster saying, step right up, I've got a decaf, cappuccino with coconut, extra hot and extra dry for Jose. Each cup a $6 milky glory. Doesn't matter if it's in fact extra hot, extra dry, or what, long as you tell them with gusto it is. People don't actually know what they want most times. I know the cup says one thing, but I promise you this drink is quite another, I tell her, as she takes the latte from me. Okay, she chuckles. Thanks. See you. And a slight buck of her chin. Soft butch. Soft butch. Bell tinkles as she ambles out. And that is the Oat Latte poem. And so this poem, too, I feel like I'm saying similar things, but this poem feels like it needs to be condensed as well. And I think I love where is it interesting? I think it feels really interesting, but it was electric. I love the opening. So Oat Latte, but it was electric. There was a hot mischief about the way she said, I like your hair. That's that hot mischief. I love that line break in that line. Plus in Dallas, that was always code for I'm gay too. Her gaze and my gaze snap together like Legos. That's very interesting. I like that too. I like your overalls, I say, and forget her order. Did you say an almond milk latte? Yes. So here we get in this dialogue. And the dialogue, I think it's a weak part of the text because we just go this sort of back and forth of sort of empty things. One of the things that I found really interesting in my own MFA program, I took a class with Janet Fitch, the novelist of like White Oleander and things, and she talked a lot about how in novels that dialogue is like we tend to, as writers, we tend to think we want to recreate like realistic dialogue, but we don't want real dialogue at all because real dialogue is boring. And that sort of brings to mind this section here. So we want what we want to do is summarize what's boring and only write the lines that are interesting. Like the like things that have to live up to the hot mischief, which is just a great phrase and a great line break there, and the snapping together like Legos. If the language isn't living up to that, then just summarize and get past it. I like the overalls, I say, and forget her order. Did you say an almond milk latte? Yes. Can't see her mouth under her mask, but I think she smiles. Actually, oat. Okay, you got it. That'll be right out. So all that needs to sort of be condensed and not wasted in lines and dialogue because they're not stimulating. Like we were just talking about before with that slam poet who I was talking to. You want as much stimulation as possible without any breaks because that's how you build up the sort of energy of a poem. And so having like this realistic but sort of drab conversation, even with the interesting undertones that are going on beneath it, just doesn't live up to the sort of rest of the hype of the poem, which is really good. So I feel like I get a little bored in this section. I write almond latte, fuck, the fuck is the same kind. It doesn't really add anything. So I write almond latte, cross out almond. Now it looks messy. So it's much better to just, get rid of this dialogue stuff. Now it looks messy. The whole should I write a new cup is kind of the same thing, even internal dialogue. But I do like the story that's playing out here. So condensing that into more of a description of what's going on lets us move through it quicker to the most stimulating parts. Should I write a new cup? That's a waste of a cup. Another customer enters. Like what if this was just should I waste another cup? And then another customer enters. Grinder stops roaring. I pour espresso into the filter. And I feel like this took a long time too. This kind of reminded me of that last scene in Sopranos where you're waiting for, I don't know if people have seen that show, but at the end, it's I can spoil it, I guess, but you're waiting to see if Tony Soprano is like assassinated or whatever, and then there's that like Meadow Soprano is like trying to parallel park and like not getting the car like outside the restaurant, and so it sort of builds this like artificial drama kind of around her difficulty parallel parking. And it feels kind of like that, like it just goes on a little too long in this section too, to me. So I think this could be condensed and ran through a little quicker too. But the filter slips off, tray hitting granite, yelling knock, little brown granules spatter across counter, floor in my pants. And this part I trip over every time I read it. So there's something about the way that the ampersand and the comma work that make it sort of cluttery. A few customers wait in line now, pull another shot, measure out 12 ounces of oat milk, crank the steam wand, and quickly see that I aerated too much. Very similar to Cindy's poem, I think. What we need here is just to get the I out of here. Like, go. And just list the stuff in a very direct way without sort of the internal monologue or like the I'm doing this. Like this was just like the pull another shot is a perfect line that works. Like it was like pull another shot, 12-ounce oat milk, crank the steam wand, aerate too much. You know, if it was moving through like that quickly, just listing what was going on. Because in your mind, you're not thinking like, I am now doing this, right? You're just doing it. And it's moving really quickly when it's doing a job you're doing. And so I think you can move through this a lot more quickly. So this whole from here, from here all the way down to here, I think really could be condensed and moved through much more quickly. Just bubbles up in a chaos, shut off steam. See this shut off steam, bang the pitcher. I think I want that voice the whole time in this section and then get through it quick. It gets a little better. So many people now. Oh, what is taking my coworker so long with that panini? Pour the milk. See, so it's like the what is taking my coworker so long with a panini? Like, where's the damn panini? Just be quick about it. Because you're in a rush, and so the syntax needs to be in a rush too. If maybe that's a better way to explain what I'm saying. Pour the milk, pour the milk, lip the cup is perfect. And then I thought it was so fascinating. This whole this section here, I just love. So I love the opening where the couple like meet for the first time, and they're great descriptions. And I love this like insight into being a barista. I thought that was really fascinating too. I've got an oat milk latte, I declare, setting sail across the bar, brandishing my first gift of this new courtship. I find the key to being a mediocre barista is announcing the finished drinks with a grand tone. Like, this is just fun and interesting. If you do, the customers usually don't question you. And maybe not if you do, but I've got a quad shot Americano, and I love the descriptions of it. They're interesting, like a ringmaster saying, step right up. I've got a decaf cappuccino with coconut extra hot and extra dry for Jose. Each cup a $6 milky glory. Doesn't matter if it's an if it's in fact extra hot, extra dry, or what, long as you tell them with gusto it is. People don't actually know what they want most times. I love that. That's one of these. This too. This is one of those great lines where just the amazing thing, an amazing thing of poetry is the way that these simple, profound lines sort of pop out on their own as you're writing a poem. People don't actually know what they want most times. Just such a clear, direct statement that really resonates. I mean, it's so true. And then, of course, it plays back to the relationship, the courtship that's just starting. Like, we don't really know what we want. It's really cool. I like that a lot. I know the cup says one thing, but I promise you, this drink is quite another, I tell her, as she takes the latte from me. But then at the very end, we get back to this boring dialogue. So even though there's this like subtext underneath it, the dialogue still isn't worth sharing unless it's interesting at like a language level. So, And so I love this here. So this dialogue is good. I know the cup says one thing, but I promise you this drink is quite another. Like, that works. I tell her she takes the latte for me. Okay, she chuckles. Thanks. See you. And a slight buck of her chin. Soft butch bell tinkles as she ambles out. So I would probably I tell her, and then just cut this stuff. And then I'm not sure. You need a little bit of that, but not much. I tell her as she takes the lot. I think maybe just as she, as the bell tinkles and she ambles out. I don't know. It feels like this needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So let's see. So Collier Blackman says that millennial type of courtship, a beginning scene in a Hallmark movie. Then later, Tom Barlow says we lose the customer for quite a while in the middle. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to condense condense it. I feel like this poem, maybe, onto the second page, but only slightly. Like that's the kind of length that the arc is projecting. But so the main thing I would just do is condense it out and take out some of the more bland aspects of dialogue. And otherwise, the poem is really good. I love the scene, and I feel like the insight into both relationships, millennial type of courtship, like Caroline mentions, and also being a barista. I think it's a cool insight into both of those things. So it was a fun poem. And yeah, sure. And this is what I was going to say. So thanks for bringing this up, Sharon. So Sharon Ferrante says, promise you this drink is quite another. That would be a great ending. And yeah, I meant to say that. So if you could find a way to sort of make that the last line, I think that works as a last line. I feel like, I feel like it needs a little bit more of like a return to the couple a little bit. But do that before and let that be the last line. Yeah. So I don't know. So this is an interesting poem. I think a little, it's one of those poems that's pretty easy to edit. I feel like just condensing a little bit of the dialogue out so it reads more quickly. And Jenny Middleton says I would finish with I tell her. Yeah. And that's another way, something around here. I was thinking about adding the bell tinkles out too, but maybe not. Maybe just the I tell her. Somewhere around here is the actual ending. Nate Jacobs says, I kind of feel like I'm the third or fourth customer in line waiting for all this to resolve when it could have gotten all squared away much more efficiently. I'm still happy to be there, but I want to get there sooner. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, exactly. So just shorten it up, because otherwise, we get this sort of access to other people in another scene in a way that's really vivid and feels like we get to experience it. And I think that really works. So just get through it a little quicker. It doesn't quite, the arc of it is just too long. It sort of overshoots a little bit. Any other comments about this? Let's see. The ending, this is Mark Grenier says, the ending makes the barista a new drink in this budding relationship, opens the door for more. Yeah. Sharon Ferrante points out the $6 Milky Glory is great. Yeah, I love that too. The whole description, when you're writing about something that you really know, great descriptions just come out all the time. And I think it feels like the speaker really knows this job and what it's like. This feels so authentic and true. And details like that are just great. So Elizabeth Boquette says, hope this helps. I don't go to Starbucks because the menu confuses me. It's funny. I just get the same thing every time because I don't like, there's just one way I like it, and that's all I do. It's a nice treat. When you're nervous in your stomach, this is Allison Jones, sorry, but when you're nervous and your stomach is all fluttery, you definitely need to be deliberate in what you've been doing for years. That is true about this scene. But the making mistakes, where do we go? The making mistakes part sort of has that drama and thinking about it step by step has that deliberateness too. So it's just the way that the things are phrased aren't moving quickly enough here, I think. More so than the descriptions, what's actually being described. Let's see. Yeah, and Mark Ritter said something similar, some of the details of making the drink seem unnecessary. It's just too much. Yeah. Nate Jacob says, this poem reads a little like it may be a little too caffeinated, cut it down to more of the essentials. Yeah, there you go. So that's just that's our feelings of this. We're past the hour, but I'm going to do the other poem too. And so this is, again, this is Maggie Rothberg. And this is Elegy for Lesbian Home. She came to the door in Adidas and ushered us in. Even the entry excited to think that in 10 years we could have a real foyer where shade from the tree out front makes dapples of sun on the coat rack at high noon. High noon, a house where every time of light comes properly through in a passing day, where white morning weighs in on what remains of last night's dreams, and dusk leans over your dinner, and dark shrouds your spousal disputes. You don't get these tone shifts when you live in an urban box with windows on just one wall, like it seems to me that most dykes do, like our professor did before she moved to Connecticut, where she got a house like this with her partner, a house like the American dream, but a little bit cooler as in you might find Ann Carson's knocks on the coffee table. Beer and wine were options, so was whiskey. There were a number of plants and records, dining room table of oak, also the ghost of the girlfriend off playing softball. She may or may not be coming home later. At first her cat was pleasant in my arms and still. Wasn't until I meowed back, just to make some conversation, that he attacked my chin with brute little fangs, as if to say, don't mock us. She felt bad, scolded the cat, and dabbed the bright red drops with toilet paper. She also she said offhand that if the girlfriend returned from her softball game, we maybe shouldn't bring up how much we'd been hanging out, not because the girlfriend would mind, just because she hadn't broached the subject yet. The shed of their yard, exquisitely fixed up, behemoth red kiln gleaming from which the girlfriend birthed the ceramic, reading vote, with a pussy replacing the O. Among other pots, this used to be where I practiced with my band, but it's kind of become her pottery studio now. She cocked her head at the drum kit in the corner and walked out. Herb garden in the back. She started in quarantine. It was a hard time. She really needed something to nurture outside the house. Don't leave without taking basil. I have way too much. A few hours later, we leave in a rush, hands empty of basil. 2 days pass and they break up. The house is under the girlfriend's name. I guess she has no basil now. She has no garden now. That is the end. Yeah. So this poem is interesting too. In a similar way, I think, to all these poems, feel like they're just too long. And I love the first page, especially. There's some great, really memorable descriptions here. Let's see. So she came to the door in her Adidas and ushered us in. Even the entry excited to think that in 10 years we could have a real foyer where shade from the tree out front makes dapples of sun on the coat rack. At high noon, a house where every time of light comes properly through in a passing day. These are just great stuff here. And the one thing I think maybe the high noon is a little cliche-ish, but then it turns on it and pulls it off too. So it's just really great stuff. Where white morning weighs, all those W sounds, great music here too, in addition to great descriptions, weighs in on what remains of last night's dreams. The dusk leans, so there's that dreams leans line, rhyme. Over the dusk leans over your dinner, and dark shrouds your spousal disputes. So great descriptions. I feel like the poem could almost just be a description of this house without the story, and let the house tell the story. Just the way that throughout the whole poem, the descriptions are just so great that maybe what we need is like this, instead of elegy for a lesbian home, maybe it's like a tour, and we're just being given a tour, like we're being shown, and then we can build a story ourselves of what's going on instead of trying to put the story in as well. Because the best things, the descriptions are just amazing in this poem. I love them. So anyway, let's see. So dark shroud your spousal disputes. I think I mixed up the pages. I think it's this page. You don't get these tone shifts when you live in an urban box with windows just on just one wall, like it seems to me that most dykes do. So I'm just going to read these comments here. So Mark Grenier says, second poem just seems too long also. In some places, the stanza breaks seem to conflict with the contents of the stanzas. Sharon Friday says these are fantastic lines here. Wow. And great stuff, just too much. And yeah, let me look over on YouTube. Let's see. Yeah, James Langford says, dusk leans over your dinner is beautiful. Yeah, so anyway, so let's just keep going, I guess. When you live in an inner box with windows on just one wall, like it seems to me and most dykes do, like a professor did before she moved to Connecticut. So this is where it's less interesting to me than the descriptions, like telling the story. Like where the, where it was like dusk leans over your dinner and dark shrouds your spousal disputes, like just that hint of like what's going on in the relationship based on the images as we look at the house. So we get this like tour of this house. I think that's a little stronger than telling the story in the way that it does, where it does that. So it's just less interesting in this section. Like our professor did before she moved to Connecticut, where she got a house like this with her partner, a house. So see, this stuff I want to sort of be implied. And we're touring this house. Like maybe describing like what the trip looked like, to Connecticut, so we can get a sense of like this is another place. And you can get the sense of some like past relationship as being you're coming back to their new house, and you can kind of get a lot. You can imply a lot through that. I think that works better than telling the actual stuff. Where she got a house like this with her partner, a house like the American dream, but a little bit cooler as in you might find. And so we can get these descriptions like, a house like the American dream, but Ann Carson's Knox is on the coffee table. Like, just tell those details without the editorializing, and let us sort of pull it together ourselves. And Carly Ann Blackman says she has a couple of poems in there, but memorable descriptions for sure. I think it's one poem. I feel like it's just having faith in the ability for that. What's the phrase that they use? The where the scene just tells the story itself, that like Thomas Hardy used all the time, that objective correlative. Is that Thomas Hardy that made that? Whatever. That thing where like the scene tells the story of the inhabitants of the scene. I think you can let that, like, trust that you're able to do that. Like, have the confidence to let the details as you're moving through the house tell the story rather than telling us what's actually going on, because it's much less interesting to hear what's going on. So we could say, like, the American dream, but Ann Carson's Knox is on the coffee table. Beer and wine are options, but so is whiskey. Talking about the plants and records. Dining room table of oak. Also the ghost of the girlfriend. Off playing softball. I mean, I think when you introduce the people, I think this is a good example of how much and how that you should maybe. So also the ghost of the girlfriend off playing softball, and just let it hang there and let us fill in the gaps of like how this relationship is going. Because then we get to like just love entering the scene of this house tour that we're getting. She may or may not come home later. See, I'd cut that and let that be implied and let us figure that out. At first, her cat was pleasant in my arms and still wasn't till I meowed back, just to make some conversation, that he attacked my chin with brute little fangs, as if to say, "Don't mock us." So this whole thing I would just cut and let the scene tell these kind of stories and not tell the story directly. She felt bad and scolded the cat and dabbed the bright red drops with toilet paper. She also said offhand that if the girlfriend returned from her softball game, maybe we shouldn't bring it up. How much we'd been hanging out. Not because the girlfriend would mind, just because she hadn't broached the subject yet. The shed in their yard, exquisitely fixed up, behemoth red kiln gleaming from which the girlfriend. So I would just cut almost all of this page, and you could jump right from here. So dining room table of oak. Also the ghost of the girlfriend off playing softball. The shed in their yard, exquisitely fixed up, behemoth, red kiln gleaming from which the girl... Like, you could move just describing the details of the house and let all this be told in the background or implied in the background. Birth the ceramic, reading vote. So we're just getting these descriptions as we move through the ghost of the girlfriend off playing softball. Then we get to see all her things in this, in the, what do you call it? The ceramic making place. It says it later, whatever it's called. But the vote with a pussy replacing the O, like that's these details tell you so much. Among other pots, this used to be where I practiced with my band. And so instead of like saying that, just say like it'd be cliche to say like the band, the drum kit, dusty in the corner or something, but some kind of thing like that. Actually down here, pottery studio. I don't know why I couldn't think of the phrase pottery studio, but it's kind of become her pottery studio now. So instead of like where the band used to practice was a pottery studio now. Not with a she cock, just like describe it. Like you, the speaker, know that this seems to be where the band practiced, and to describe it. And then let us say like, oh, the band's not practicing because it's a pottery studio. Let's fill in that ourselves. A drum kit in the corner and walked out. Herb garden in the back where she started in quarantine. It was a hard time. She really needed it. Something to nurture outside the house. Don't leave without taking the basil. I have way too much. A few hours later, we leave in a rush, hands empty of basil. 2 days pass. They break up. The house is under the girlfriend's name. I guess she has no basil now. She has no garden now. So, I don't know. I mean, I just go back to this every time, but I would love for this poem to just be a tour of the house, in which we can add all of this background story in for ourselves just through the details. I think that works really well. And yeah, Open Dance Ensemble here says cat story seems like a digression. And then that's the thing. They feel, both unnecessary and less interesting than the descriptions that tell stories, which are done so well, especially on this first page. This first page is just amazing. Okay, let's see. So Dana Broadhead says, I feel like it could be separated into two. The beginning is inside the house, the other being outside in the shed and in the garden. I love how she played off the light, the shadows, and the use of colors in the beginning. Nate Jacobs says, focus more on here and now, a good way to put it. Let's see. Mark Grenier says, wonderful details. I like the basil in particular as a metaphor for the garden. Sharon Frontis says this could be written without the stanzas. Just scroll down the page and move it more. Mark Grenier, the poem is an elegy for the home, present tense, not the Connecticut home. Although the two may be similar, the past home seems a distraction. Jamie O'Halloran Whitmarsh, reworking the way the poem appears on the page seems unintentional and throws away moments that deserve to be highlighted. Why couplets? Why the few singlet stanzas? Let's see. So Nate Jacob again says, good bones, maybe too much flesh, drop the weight of anything not going on, then and there, for a fit and trim poem. Yeah, so this poem, I'm going to say it again, and it's the last time I'll say it, but I think this should be a tour of a lesbian home, and then just make it a tour. Like, we know where we are. We're on this tour. We can build back the fact that you used to have a relationship. You knew when the person was in the band before, and now that the whole drama of things can be played out through the details. Like, it does so well with this. The dusk leaning over your dinner and the dark shrouds of your spousal disputes, like those kind of things. Like, let those in is like imagine just taking the tour of the house, because when you go to someone's house that they just bought a while ago for the first time in the country, they're going to give you a tour and they're going to say, here's the foyer, like we get at the beginning, and they're going to be moving you room to room because that's just what people do. They want to show off their house, and so you can be picking up these things as you go through, making observations and letting that tell the story. And I think the whole story can be told that way, and that makes it a way that's really powerful and memorable and compelling the whole way through, because the descriptions of what's going on in the backstory, when it's just told flat, very similar to the dialogue stuff from the cafe poem. Just don't do it. Don't do it as strongly as telling it through the descriptions and details like you do on this first page. So that's what I say this one. Make it a tour of a lesbian home, and then let us piece together the relationships from the details. And Mark Greener says, but the poem is about the end of the relationship, which is also the end of the home. These are key to the intensity, I think. Well, I think like you can see that as you move through the house, that this relationship is about to be over, and that'll be the end of this home. And that can come out through that sort of frame. Like, think of it as like a picture frame, like an actual frame that you're like holding up and moving. And that's the conceit of getting a tour of this house. And then that'll keep it more focused on the things that are working best, which are the descriptions of the rooms and the things that are in the rooms. And so how those objects and details can tell the story. And I think you can pull it all together that way without losing anything, is my point. So I think that'll be a really great poem if once that's done. So that's what I would do. That's what I would recommend for this poem. So these are really 4 excellent poems. The whole day was, or the whole hour and 10 minutes was filled with good stuff. So there was 2 poems, Maggie Rothberg, and 2 by Cindy Botha. And and so we went 20 minutes over the normal time. So thanks for bearing with me for that. These are longer poems and with good stuff to talk about. So so that is the critique of the week for today. We'll be back here, of course, next Friday, like we always are, with 2 new poets. And this week's guest on the Rattlecast is going to be Brittany Corrigan. Brittany is a poet that we published in Poet Respond, and then she came out to our reading series and was great, and just happens to have 2 new books in the last year, pretty much. Daughters and the other one, which I can't see from here across my desk, but Daughters and something else. Breaking. There's something like Breaking. But two new books she's going to be reading from, and a 3rd book that's forthcoming she wants to read from too. She's got a lot of content. It's going to be really fun to talk to her. And the prompt for this week was a guy walks into a bar is one of the most common joke intros. Write a poem that starts with that line. It doesn't have to be a humorous poem. So that was the prompt for this week, was to write a guy walks into a bar poem. And spin that off in any way you would like. But that'll be the prompt for this week. And the guest for this week, once again, is Brittany Corrigan, Rattlecast number 119, the regular time, Sunday, November 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you then. Hope you have a great weekend in the meantime. Goodbye.